Welcome in, everybody. The ESO tank meta. It has been in this game a very long time, and we've gone through a bunch of different metas in the game, but predominantly I think we've seen in PvP a majority of tank metas. And there's one thing that I found all of these tank metas have had in common, and that is simply poor performance. If the game doesn't run very well, it's a lot better to play a build that's a little bit more forgiving than one that requires you to make the right decisions every single time. And yeah, poor performance is things like lag and abilities not working, like the vampire stealth here, which shouldn't break while we're sprinting, but seems to do it sometimes in PvP. The big reason that I think this results in more of a tank meta is because people don't want to play a build where if they lag out and they can't react appropriately, or they miss their move, or it's not firing off properly, they're gonna die right away. In fact, the environment of Cyrodiil really encourages you to play something that is very forgiving. I mean, it is a Zerg environment, and I would argue that playing a bulkier build is definitely beneficial if you're in a larger group fight for sure. But that being said, I feel like it's kind of locked this game into playing a tank. I mean, maybe a Nightblade can get away with it because they can gank, but if you're not playing a Nightblade, playing a squishy medium armor build is really frustrating, and it's because you can't defend yourself or even attack effectively every time. The inconsistency in the game means that if you're playing a build that requires it to work every time, you're gonna die or you're gonna take an unfavorable matchup. And it's kind of a shame because the lag mixed with the bugs makes it almost impossible to play something that you want to play if it isn't that style of build that is bulky and that is forgiving. And, you know, not everybody wants to play a squishy build. I understand that. Maybe a lot of people like the tank builds too. Like I said, it is definitely the preferred style for Cyrodiil, I think, but it sucks that we're losing that diversity, and it's not even because they're trying to balance it poorly. I mean, balance is one thing. They're working a lot on different things balance-wise. They're constantly changing things, but they are trying to make non-tanky builds more viable. They're constantly nerfing durable builds, and they're buffing things like regen and damage, so people are encouraged to play more high-damage builds. But I think that the performance is really the deciding factor here. If the game doesn't work properly, people don't want to play something like that. And I think that's why the tank meta continues to persist regardless of balance changes, because it really is just about performance. And, you know, it makes me think about the game going forward and what they're going to do with it, especially with these performance changes in Cyrodiil. They're going to be making a lot of changes to the game, but will the performance actually get better? We've heard this stuff from ZeniMax before, that they're going to do things to make performance better, and you know, we are where we are today, so I think that's all I really need to say about it. And here's a good example of the inconsistency as the Dawnbreaker hits the player behind the guy that I'm aiming at. So what does this mean for the game, being kind of stuck in a tank meta? I think it just makes ESO combat a shade of what it could be. I think that, you know, what makes combat fun in this game is how fast it is. You can control your character really well, and you can do lots of things in a short period of time with them. So if we're stuck in a tank meta that's kind of forced by the performance being bad, we're left with a combat style that's slower and sluggish. And not just that, but people die a lot slower because everybody is playing a bulkier build, everybody has less damage, and everybody has less capacity to keep attacking each other. And in the end, combat can be boring and frustrating. It's frustrating if you want to try to play something that requires you to be able to react properly because you won't be able to do it, which in turn can make it boring because then your next option is to play something that isn't as exciting. Now, I know when it comes to how fun a build is, it's very subjective, but I think at the end of the day what I'm really getting at is the loss of build diversity, the inability to play the style that you want and for it to be effective, and that's brought on by poor performance. And for me, PvP, at least one of the biggest shining points of PvP and just ESO combat in general, is the build diversity. Especially in PvP, you can build anything and it can be effective as long as you play it properly and you put the things that you need to survive on it. You can be very creative in this environment, but I think it really takes away the creativity and, you know, replaces it with frustration. For me personally, I spend time putting my builds together, and I enjoy the theory crafting process as well, but, you know, the end result is really the goal. I want to be able to play the build that I've spent all this time working on, thinking about, and then finally getting the gear for. And it's frustrating to take that build out into PvP and have performance be the reason that it's not going to work. And a little bit of a double whammy because, well, I do kind of need the footage to make build videos, but that's a little off topic. So what kind of options do squishy build lovers like me and possibly you have now that the game is kind of in this state? I don't know. I think that there's certain things that we have to give up on our builds now. I've always loved running as glassy as possible, but I do feel like I need to have 30k hit points or something like that now, so I have that bit of extra cushion when things don't go properly. And I think I'm going to shift a lot more towards a passive defense. Like I said, I'm going to drop kiting as much as I do. I mean, we're obviously still going to move, but we're going to have a lot more things like passive heals over time, general bulk, health recovery. And I think that that's going to have a big impact on my gameplay simply because right now it's very hard to survive if you're relying on things like roll to work every time and your abilities to be casted and canceled in between your rolls. And I think that, you know, I'm going to have to just bite the bullet and adapt to this passive defense meta because I've always loved the active defense. That's why I play the squishy builds. You actively defend yourself. But I think the passive defense is just better now. The active defense doesn't work consistently. The passive defense is not only still strong, but it's going to work even if I'm lagging out. And that's the big thing. That's the big difference. So, in the end, we come back to a point I made earlier. It's the loss of build diversity that is the killer. It sucks, you know? You maybe might not like to play the style that I do, but the fact that we are kind of forced to play something is the losing part here. At least in my opinion, because I think that's the best part of ESO, is the build diversity. So yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you guys think that we are stuck in a tank meta even right now? And if we are, do you think that this is something that the game is going to suffer for a long time? What do you think the reasoning is? Do you disagree or agree? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you guys want to send in a clip for the top 5 PvP battles, or if you want to have a build featured on the channel, you can send it to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. Check out my Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with my shenanigans. And of course, check out my Twitch if you guys want to catch a live stream or just come and say hello. And of course, check out my website, KristoferESO.com. It's got written guides to all of my builds. It is also a hub for all of my ESO content. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They can give you better ping to your favorite games, and they're free to try for the first month. No credit card to sign up, with the link down in the description below. And then last but certainly not least, a big shout out and a huge thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this job, so thank you so much for helping me do it. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and watching today. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, so let me know down in the comment section, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great night, everybody.